Hi everyone, I've got with me a friend Paulo de Lima, and today we will be talking about what he does for life. He's a kinesiologist, and how do we treat people in that. The title, The War on Psyche, is very important for us to be mindful of as it relates to the deeper part of our consciousness. And so, in that sense, we also need to understand that our bodies are part of the vehicle that assists the psyche as well in some way, and the other way around. So you're bringing in balance within the body. So what I want to ask you is, before we hit into the deeper parts and have a lovely discussion or chat about it, tell me something about kinesiology. I don't know much about it, so it's up to you. What is kinesiology? How do
Right.
you do the work you do?
Aye. Okay, so kinesiology, the stream of kinesiology that I practice is PKP. And it originated from Australia, New Zealand, sorry. And it's by Dr. Bruce and Joan Dew. And they developed it from the 60s, where they found a correlation of how the subconscious affects your conscious mind. And they started putting a lot of things together from different streams. And the way kinesiology works is we tap into the subconscious mind through using muscle testing. And muscle testing is basically biofeedback. So we'll isolate one muscle, say like on the arm, and if we can get a yes/no response or a stress response from that, then we know we're really speaking to the subconscious mind. And so, in essence, that bypasses what the conscious mouth is speaking, to help people get past what they need to work on. So, like Dr. Bruce Lipton actually puts it very nicely. He says our subconscious mind, because it runs 95% of our day. Um, it's like putting in a CD player into the machine, into the player, and it's playing a specific song, and you want to change that song. So you walk up to the CD player and you say, change to this song, and it's just going to keep playing because that disc is still inside there. So with kinesiology, we basically go in, we take out that disc, and we put in the disc that you want to play. And there's a whole lot of modalities we can use. There's over 360 different types of modes that we can access, and it's all part of the subconscious mind that'll choose that. So in any session, I'll never know which is coming up. And then what we do is we go into an age recession halfway through the session to actually go back to the age where a trigger was created for the specific issue that a person is dealing with. And you put the two and two together, and that forms a bigger picture for the person to understand why they're doing what they're doing or what's happening to them in their life. And
That's
so
great.
I've also incorporated Chinese therapies, not Chinese therapies, Chinese medicine into the practice, which has worked phenomenally because of the energy model that Chinese use. It's not just yin and yang, like people think, like the dark side, the light side. Um, the organs and everything have different yin and yang principles, and they each feed into each other in a certain way. So that works beautifully as well.
So would you say that that's masculine and feminine principles in each modality? The those two sides, or
There is some part of it, but with Chinese beliefs, it's not always masculine and feminine. But masculinity and femininity does play a big part in whatever's going on in a person's mind, in many ways. One of them could be, if you look at it literally, of um, the parents, mother and the father, masculine principle, feminine principle, how they affected the person growing up, and how that person took what they saw around them and leaned more to the one side in a dysfunctional way or a functional way. Um, so yeah, but there is the animus that comes into play where, like for instance, a man will become like too much on the feminine side, and he won't really be the doer. He'll be like more like the laid back person, allowing the woman to take charge, and vice versa.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Mm.
So I thought it was a very good place to actually interview you specifically on what you've just said, because obviously we've noticed and we've observed how society has been influenced by most of these subconscious issues in terms of their beliefs as well, and as you've just brought up, how they grew up, how a person grows up, so ideologies as well. And clearly we can see that society currently as it stands, we've taken a snapshot of it. We're not going to be solving anything for the audience members, but we're just basically having a fireside chat about the whole process and giving our scope on it, that I've noticed on my end. And I'd like to hear your side as well on your observations of society as a whole. What have you been experiencing? What I've been seeing is basically people discarding or disconnecting from the inner consciousness, the subconscious, which is why I thought that the title, The War on Psyche, is so appropriate, because of the current situations or the current events that are taking place in society as we speak. Your opinion on that? What have you experienced? What have you found on your side?
Sure. From my
Dysfunctionality,
side, I feel
are
that,
you able to see it, is what I'm basically asking.
yeah, big time. Uh, from my experience is that a lot of people have been too influenced by what's happening around on the outside world, social media, friends, and it's not like in the old days where if a person knew who they were, they knew who they were. Now there's just too much influence on like what's going on, and well think, oh, I'd like to try that, because they get bored, and if they get bored, then they start dwelling into the other direction as opposed to staying centered in as to who they are, and like just sitting within great spirit. And that's what I find is that that's usually the way I can get a person to come back and just resonate with the essence of themselves in a session, is that to get them to close their eyes and just be inside of themselves, and then take them back into a heart space to rekindle that fire of who they originally were when they were younger, or this idea of who they really want to be, and recreate that. Because people are just so lost in listening to everything else that's happening around them. Their minds just become too busy. That's like out there. And that's where a lot of anxiety and depression comes about, because they want something out there to solve their anxiety and their depression and whatever else it is. And it's not. It's the key is coming back inside of you and just grounding yourself, centering yourself.
Right.
That's a big part of it.
That's very interesting, because I think I've got a quote here, which is Noam Chomsky, that wrote that the primary function of mass media, obviously, as you've just mentioned, is to educate the man so that he must be able to consent or be influenced by society and influence society as well, because of the ideals via mainstream media, what it presents or projects into the socio-economic influences for the everyday man. And basically, the main relationship that you would normally have had within yourself is then the second or the third or the last place you'll look for inner support or courage, or as you say, love, or to find the connection with the original creator. So basically what I'm trying to say is I brought this subject in, or this quote in, because they have been presenting a lot of these belief systems in now, even more so than ever before. I mean, if you look back in the 80s, you kind of could remember, or I'm using the 80s as an example, that things were a little bit different than how they are now. Now it's more like every day it's like boom, 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 boom. It's in your face, it's there all the time. So you're getting a badgering of influences that comes from, obviously, like he says, the primary function from the mass media. So that does throw one off one's personal relationship with oneself. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to add to what you're saying. Your role as a kinesiologist, and the sacred wisdom, obviously, that comes within you because you're a healer, essentially. Obviously, it's cut out for this specific time period in this time of humanity right now. You know that you're obviously getting more to do with people that are struggling to find their inner selves. How does that work for you? How does it make you feel? I mean, does it feel like you're able to manage it, or I don't know, it's quite a vast question. Sorry that I threw that into you. Sorry.
Well, I'd like to like no, it's fine. I'd like to put a little bit of like a background into that. Is that
Yeah, please.
So number one, before I ever like even start a session, like I'll sit for the first like 10 minutes before the session, and I'll write the person's name down on the card, and I'll sit and I'll just center myself, focus, and I'll like connect with Great Spirit to ask myself to be present within Great Spirit's presence, and that Great Spirit is present within me, so that I can truly listen to what the person is saying, so that I can truly help them. My wife was one of the biggest inspirations for me to start kinesiology. We weren't even married, and we were texting each other one night. It was a Monday night, and we were asking each other what would we like to do, because we both came from retail backgrounds, and we were tired of this thing because it's just money, it's nothing else. And then she says she's looked into kinesiology, and I asked, what is that? And she says, well, this is it. She sent me the website, and I read a bit, and I said, wow, I wonder if they got like when the classes start. So I emailed straight away that night to the college, and I got a response back straight away saying, actually, we start our first class tomorrow. And I said, I'm there. So it just like it blossomed from there. And then I had a friend that he was actually studying with me, and we'd never liked each other in the beginning, not at all. We just clashed a lot. And then he decided, no, he's leaving for Peru. He's going to the jungles, and he's going to do ayahuasca. So they taught him in Peru, and he came back, and we became great friends. And then I did an ayahuasca journey with him one day, and I was the only guy there between all the girls. And after the ceremony, on the final day, we did a San Pedro ceremony where, and then all of a sudden, all these girls had their inner traumas come out, and they all started like crying and stuff. So he had to sit and console them. So I started helping him about it and doing certain techniques to just like release it properly. And then he sat down with me and says, look, you know what? He said to me in his words, this is modern day shamanism that you've just done. And he says, without using any medicine, and that is important. And I said, yeah, no, I actually feel like it is important. So we did a bartering system where back then I would do a ceremony with him, and in exchange for a few sessions that he would send people to me for help. And it just snowballed from there, that people started coming to me when he sent them, and then they would send other people to me. And I found that was important, because a person doesn't always need like medicine, like even if it's plant medicine, they don't always need that to get there, because that plant medicine will show them their issue, but how do they deal with it afterwards? That's the biggest thing. So you can't rely on the medicine to help you. You have to go within and learn like how to deal with yourself, how to deal with your issues. So
okay, so basically,
yeah.
a lot of things that you experienced within yourself also came out, because I find that happens to me when I used to see people. I don't anymore. I've been doing other work in the meantime, but I found that every time I had to do work with a person, I had to deal with something that was inside of me as well to be able to deal with that person, which was actually quite interesting how it
Yes.
happened. Yeah,
I
very
see that
interesting.
in almost every client that comes to me as well. There's always
Right.
something my wife will point out when I'm telling her. She says, "Don't you need to deal with that?" It's like, yeah.
Well, that is why I think that you're very much going to be part of, or you already are playing a very big role in the society as we speak. And when I say society, I'm not speaking of the collective, because I don't believe humanity is a collective. I believe that humanity is ever individual and unique within his or herself. Um, so when I say society, I'm referring to that which was already presented in this day and age, specifically with reflection to the last few years that we've gone through, where everything was suddenly amped up faster than usual in terms of the stuff that we went through, that the world has gone through. Um, this is why I'm feeling now is the time to present more of the inner medicine and, as you say, the plant medicine as well. May I ask you a question? How does plant medicine work for you? I mean, can you just give me an example on it? I'm curious.
Okay, so I haven't done ayahuasca in about 4 years. My friend subsequently passed away last year. And the way ayahuasca works is actually incredible because they use the root of the tree of one tree and then the leaves of another tree, which is like 1,000 kilometers away. And then they just combine it. They actually cook it for 3 days. They let it simmer in a massive, like 50-liter pot. And they just keep replenishing the water the whole time for 3 days. And eventually, what comes out is like a 2-liter container of ayahuasca. It's vile, but it brings in the essence of the plant. And ayahuasca is not, it's like it says, it's medicine.
Mm,
So whatever is like sitting either on a spiritual level or even a physical level starts healing itself. And with ayahuasca, they bring in the different animal elements. So there's always the anaconda, there's the jaguar, there's the hummingbird, there's a spider, araña. So those are all like totem animals that'll take you on your journey and like guide you to where you need to go. So you're lying there in this state and you're in the constructs of your mind and
mm,
your spirit, and that takes you to different places. So that's how basically it works. And then it shows you according to your own belief system, you know, what needs to happen. So a lot of people go there with an expectation to work on X, Y, Z, and they
mm,
come out working on ABC. And they say, but
mm.
I didn't expect that. And like that was really what I needed. And that's actually started them going off onto another path of healing because they got what they needed, not what they wanted. That's my experience with ayahuasca. I haven't done any other mushroom journeys or anything like that. It
Do
never
you
resonated with me.
do you actually leave your body when you do the ayahuasca journey, or do you go into some interdimensional space?
I believe there's interdimensional space. I don't recall ever leaving my body, but I do feel like the universe is inside of me. So I was within that universe. Because
That's
for me, there's a lot of geometrics like related to that. And for some reason, geometry is sacred. Like with Pythagoras and everything that, he discusses that. And that for some reason, for me, it was always about geometric shapes and things like that. The first ayahuasca ceremony I ever did, I kept seeing a python, an anaconda, um, between my legs, between the bushes, in my mind. And then after the first ceremony, I said to the guy, friend, Johan, I keep seeing the anaconda. And he says, well, why don't you, in tonight's ceremony, ask it to either swallow you or ride it? He says, because
mm,
that's power. And I actually asked it to swallow me. And when I felt it swallowing me, I could actually feel my body wriggling. It's like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
it took me like different dimensions and showed me different things of where I wanted to be. And that night, I specifically remember having to deal with anger issues and being taken for a ride every
Mm.
time, and allowing myself to be taken for a ride by other people.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So now, basically, from your experience, I'm feeling inspired to go into the next part of of my curiosity about you as a, let's call you a shaman for now. And would you see, okay, so what I'm trying to say is I'm just going completely from what I feel I must ask is the animus that is currently present in this reality, in this society. Okay, because there's a lot of different versions of it, which is most likely something that relates to the egregores or the abstract influences from the system overlay. Those are on my channel. You'll understand what the system overlay is. So if you're brand new, then go watch everything and you'll understand what I'm saying. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. The system overlay is filled with a lot of these egregores or these animus or anima, any way you want to see it, influenced by that, based on a lot of inner turmoil. That's what I've noticed. That's basically the sum of the work that I've been trying to share with people, is it's filled with these things that people need to fix within themselves before they're able to actually access a path, their path to where they need to go. And so I've noticed that there's an imbalance between the masculine and the feminine as as they are in individuals, male and female. There's a deep imbalance within them. I'm sure you've experienced the stories around that sort of those imbalances, particularly in the younger generation. As you say, they get bored, when they become they seek other paths. So what I'm trying to say is how we know about narcissism. How would you deal with people with narcissistic traits, for example? How would you deal with people that are, for example, autistic but appear to be complex personality situations? I'm just asking this as well based on your practice. How would you deal with
So,
the animus? How would you how would you deal with the animus of
so
that
narcissists
individual?
are difficult. I've had one narcissist come to me. He was a youngster. He was 17, and he acknowledges that he's a narcissist. And throughout the whole session,
Hmm.
he would play this back and forth about narcissism, and
Hmm.
I would have to call him out on it every time. And I said, like, you know, dude, are you here to work on yourself, or are you just here to show how narcissistic you can be? Eventually, the session ended like abruptly, and then he left. And you know, I just felt there was no work done on him. Maybe there was a seed planted in him to actually go and better himself at some point in life. But I do feel that a person has to be called out on their narcissism. And for me, I don't know any other right way to actually deal with
Yeah.
a narcissist.
Yeah.
As far as autistic people are concerned, I've never really come across an autistic child or person that was not really truly autistic. So I remember my first year we had to do mini case studies on people with regards to different things that we've already studied in modules. And my first client was actually a 9-year-old little boy from black culture. The parents didn't know he was autistic. They just thought something was wrong because he couldn't speak. If he wanted to communicate, he would sing it to them,
Hmm.
and he would get very like agitated and he would start biting the palms of his hands over here, so he had scars. And so I tried doing the session on him, but every time I tried to test his muscles, he would like think it's a game and he'd like play around with me, and like it was very cute, and I thought, shame, this is innocent. I actually had to do a surrogate take his energy and move it onto his mother, and I worked on his mother, and then at the end of the session I moved it back to him. And what came out was that he needed to take Bach essence flower drops for a certain period of time, just to help with his energy levels. And when I saw his father like 3 weeks later, I asked him, how's it going? Did you manage to get those drops? Because they're expensive. I didn't expect him to get it. He showed me the bottle. It was like almost finished. He says it actually went very well. He doesn't bite his palms anymore. He's very calm, very relaxed, because his parents as well understood that he needed a different type of attention. So it wasn't just a change on him, but it was a change on the parents. So I think with anima and animus, it's been so badly subverted with today's media that a person doesn't really understand, a male doesn't really understand what it means to experience his anima, and same with a woman to experience her animus. They think it's this like aggressive, like for a woman it must be this aggressive, like I am powerful woman. It doesn't have to be like that. It just has to mean that I can be powerful within myself and stand in my power. The same with a male. It doesn't have to like all of a sudden become this petite,
like what they're doing now with everyone. Yeah.
And then what it subsequently does to especially the youngsters, it breaks down their character, it breaks down their confidence, it makes them like physically and mentally weak, because they don't understand the psychology of it. They're just seeing what is on social media, not bothering to actually go and research, what this is all about. So they just fall into this spiral going downwards, and it just they end up where they are.
But that's very interesting that you bring that up, because it's led me to want to also share with you something that I know called aesthetic warfare, which is something that came out around the 60s, I think, or when they started the counterculture movements, the punk and all of that stuff. And I'm guilty. I was also a punk lover. The whole thing. Black hair, black nails thing. Anyway, those were the rebellious days. I know you can't imagine that. Anyway, so what I want to say is,
can you imagine?
I don't know I don't know how you can see that. So anyway, the aesthetic warfare is a form of Satanism. Basically, I've done some research on it, and when I say Satanism, I'm not saying black candles, black mass, and doing all the ritual stuff like usual. I'm not bringing that up. What I'm saying is, it's when the psychology of the mind, from what you're saying there, it's led me to go into this to share with you the psychological premise that everyone needs to look after each other. So individual existence becomes a type of tribe or a group thing, like hive mind, where they all look after each other. You're my brother, you're my sister, we're all brothers and sisters, and that sort of thing. And that then becomes something that's called cargo cult, a cargo cult, which means something that is like a breakaway society type of thing. And the reason it's aesthetic warfare is to do with something that is not beautiful enough, must be marred because it's only superficial. If it can be marred or scarred or wounded or injured, then it means it was never meant to be beautiful in the first place. Or there's this very strange sort of psychological inversion within the consciousness of that. And so I'm seeing all of those imbalances. It comes out even in the New Age community. It comes out in the as you've just said, the masculine and the feminine, where there's an imbalance with with either anima and animus. There's an imbalance in that. It's more imbalanced now than it ever was, because of these little breakaway tribal behavior. When I say tribe, I'm saying this has got nothing to do with traditions or anything like that. It's to do with group thinking, like exactly what we've just said. I mean, I know of people that are also struggling with this whole overt transgender. Gosh, I don't know if they're gonna take it out. Anyway, we'll just run with that. The overt transgenderism, which is actually just another form of transgenderism, becomes transhumanism. There you go. So that is what concerns me, is this: there's this cut off, disconnection from the soul, the inner part of what you are, of who you are. Have you found have you experienced that?
Yes, sure. So like that comes from like disassociation.
Yes, yes.
So like I've had a couple of clients come to me with disassociation, and it's actually difficult because none of them work the same. None of them come from the same like issues. But the one thing is that I can pinpoint it to is because they've been influenced by, like, yes, the social media, but when things get tough at home, they don't have anywhere to turn to. So they turn to, like you said, this, like, becoming part of a clique or group or things like that, because it seems like, it's been pushed so much over the years that, like, oh, you belong in that group and you belong in that group.
Yeah, the labels.
Yeah. And then when that group is no longer there for you, you just don't know who you are anymore. You don't belong anywhere, and you become so lonely. And then when you become lonely, you become depressed, and the world is against you. Yes. So with the whole transgenderism and transhumanism things, like, it's like a bombardment from every single angle, like from social media to your friends, and even the food that we eat, which affects our liver, and our liver affects, like, the way we feel, because of all the hormones that get pumped into the foods and stuff like that. And that affects us also, like, because if it goes into your stomach starts controlling what your brain is saying. Like, if you're not even hungry, but yet you're craving sugar, it's because of all the parasites that are in your stomach. The same with, this transgenderism. That's why so many have fallen into that whole, like, transgender stuff.
Okay. Yeah. There's it's quite a hype thing. I was actually looking at some material today that was actually extremely disturbing, not so much in the sense that it was I think it was a pop star or an idol or whatever you want to call it, because that's what they are, idols. And the younger they become, the more they become less of themselves. I mean, the younger they are, the less they are of themselves, the less they are themselves. The disassociation is extreme, very extreme in that. Would you, I'm just throwing that out. What do you think that this is just something that is on a psychological level related to the individual and the house and where they grow up, or is it something that is it a choice, or what is your opinion on that? What is your thought on it?
I think it's a bit of quite a bit. The house always, the home environment always plays a big part. Because if you look at kids that were born in the last 20 years, they were born with basically a cell phone in their hands. If they weren't born with a cell phone in their hands, they got it earlier than what you and I got it. I mean, I was in my 20s when I got mine.
Yeah.
And we still had those old Nokias that you could only, like, maybe text like 30 words.
SMSs.
Yes. And now they've got smartphones, and and they lose themselves. And I was actually watching the other day this grandmother and her two grandchildren. They couldn't have been more than a year old, and they were so like, glued to the cell phone, watching it. When the grandmother took away, they like threw a tantrum. It's like you can't do that to a child. It
Mm,
messes with their brains. So the house environment has to play a big part. But kids that go to school, university, they get influenced badly because they haven't got this strong foundation.
mm,
Um, I can use my kids as an example because they're homeschooled, and we teach them like there's no cell phones, and if you're going to use the cell phone, that's your amount of time, and then you can only watch these things that gives
mm,
you education, and then they put it away. And when they go to extramural activities, the other kids they'll chase, they'll play, and things like that. But as soon as those kids do something they don't like, the two of them turn around and off they go.
mm,
They won't follow that crowd. Once in a while, you'll hear them like starting to use their jargon, and you say, no, no, that's not your jargon. You be yourself.
mm,
And that's important for parents to actually acknowledge and understand and know who their kids are and what their kids are about. And when their kids start acting out of character and trying to do all these things that they see on TikToks and stuff like that, to say, no, look, it's all fun and games, but don't get lost in that world.
mm.
It's important to give them that foundation, I feel. Now, but as parents, we always feel like we fail now and again. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
So
yeah, like you said, the external environments also play a big part in this whole
yeah,
agenda. Yeah.
yes. And it's much more amped up, of course, because of the multimedia platforms that are so much
Mm.
more obviously accessible. I know I'm flogging a dead horse. Everyone knows about that, but
Yeah.
it is the one thing that keeps coming up as a part of a problem. In your opinion, how would you say does it also influence or affect, let's relationships between people, if they now were not, if they were, yeah, relationships between people, if they were a couple or if they're married or if they were looking for people, how would, what I'm asking is, what would you say, what could help for a person to actually start helping themselves in becoming a better person? I mean, if they miss the part of the child thing at home.
Sure. Yeah. So first, they'd have to acknowledge that they actually have that issue.
Mm,
It's no point like I get a lot of people once they leave from me, they say, I've got to send this person to you. I've got to send my husband or my wife to you. And I say to them,
mm,
but do they want to come? I say, because if they don't want to come and you're just pushing them to come, there's no work that's going to get done. So
yeah.
that person has to be the first one to acknowledge. And once they acknowledge it, even if they don't come for a session, for them they have to look at how do I change my behavior? Because a habit is something that you keep doing continuously, like smoking, for instance.
Mm,
Um, so many people have tried to quit smoking and yet they can't. Like they'll stop for like a few days and then something triggers them and they're back onto that. So there has to be a lot of conscious thinking every second of the day if you're not going to tap into the subconscious.
mm,
So a lot of the times when someone's like faced with, when they come to me, they're faced with like a difficult situation that they need to overcome. And I feel that there needs to be like kind of homework be done after the session. I'll let them say, I'll give them like this homework of saying, wake up. I'll test it first and I'll see if it resonates with their subconscious. But um, do wake up in the morning and do gratitudes and then intentions for the day. You might not get it right for the first week of doing those intentions, but you're planting a seed to start changing the whole like all the neurons to start firing and wiring in a different way to start going in that direction eventually. And
mm,
then eventually one day, like you'll go, okay, I don't need this right now. I'll put it aside for now. And eventually you forget about that cigarette. And that usually helps.
mm,
But I mean, if you look at everybody that wakes up in the morning, so many people wake up and they've got their phones right next to them, and the first thing they do is pick up their phone and they scroll, and they go to the toilet, they walk past the toilet, they look at the mirror and they see that, I still look the same, you know. So that
Yeah.
reaffirms who they are. It reaffirms actually also their habits of,
Mm.
you know, this is me, this is my face, but inside, this is what I'm made of. That's exactly what they've just reaffirmed. So
Yeah.
it has to be like a change from the morning, from the time that they wake up, when they're still coming out of that theta brainwave level, that they
Yeah.
reprogram their mind already.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that a lot of people could actually benefit by that. I mean, I think every one of us could actually do that, I suppose. In relationships, what I've also seen, and I deal a lot with relationships. Most of the women or the men that come on that talk to me are either looking to be with someone, or they are going through issues with the other person, and the issues that, and almost 9 out of 10 times there's this expectation that the person, the guy or the girl, they're supposed to know somehow magically that the other guy is interested, or the other person's interested in them. And I think that that is where that whole thing about growing up with the phone in the hand gives it away, that that's basically how their minds are operating, how they think, because of the artificial influence that they keep getting. So based on the likes means, oh, they like you, based on their thumbs up or the little whatever they give for your comment, that means that is okay. So if he doesn't send you a message every day, every or 10 times a day or whatever, then he's now suddenly maybe not the right guy for her. That's the type of the stuff that seems to be quite prevalent these days. So yeah, I'm sure you
It's a
must be dealing with
complete
that as well.
disconnection of what communication is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It,
So they
it's
can't
it's
communicate what the feelings are. They expect to communicate it on a little WhatsApp.
yeah. So I actually know that there's a percentage of the people in the world that apparently do not have an inner monologue. They don't have an inner thinking that actually takes place. So everything is on the outside. There's absolutely zero filters. I need to find that link where that article is, because it was actually done with people doing tests. So that is very concerning as well. That is why I'm saying I think there's seriously a disconnection of major proportions here. Otherwise, we're dealing with people that are perhaps not presently intact with their souls, to put it like that.
Yeah. The thing is, it's very important what you said there about not intact with their souls,
Hmm.
because how many people are at the moment. I was actually got lost on Facebook today, and I looked at some of these little short reels that they've got,
Hmm.
and so it's not. It's really actually just disgusting to think that they'll find that funny, uh,
Hmm.
and to actually put your own relationship with your partner under such strain, or like think it's okay to like just go and walk up to another woman in front of your partner and do something strange with them and think that your partner should be all right with it. It's if people have come to that point in society, they've really lost that connection with their souls and their great spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why I'm thinking at some point, based on what we've been bringing up in the channel and what you've been experiencing in your work as well. So very difficult to try and draw people back, or to help them to draw themselves back, rather, to put it that way. If you've been exposed, I actually think we're also dealing with some apathy and some laziness as well. I don't know. What do you think? That kind of like sort of slows down the interest of really wanting to think here, instead of just going, you know, instant, no filter, blah blah blah, whatever is on the mind thing, sort of thing. Or could it be something but a bit more sinister, something a bit more psychologically wrong with the person themselves? I see a lot of those people. There's a lot of those people that connect with me. That's disturbing for them to be in that space. You can actually feel the disconnection.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because of medication but because certain medications that I've experienced with people, and not me myself, but the people that I dealt with and deal with are very much so disconnected. You don't know whether there's a human sitting on the other end of the screen, if you didn't
Sure.
see it. So that is very much a problem. I'm saying the human society has a big issue. It's a big problem. It's
Yeah.
not just what we've experienced in the last few years. Uh, yeah, that's just my opinion. I
I
don't
think you've
know.
nailed it.
Yeah,
And
I don't
especially
know.
the empathy part is the biggest part. When there's
Yeah,
empathy for another person, there's empathy within themselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
We know that through series of major social engineering, and we know when it started as well. I think you and I are probably around the same age. It started to
25.
peak. Actually, I'm 26. um, around the I think it was around it was right after the Second World War. Right after the Second World War, that's when they started to hammer the consciousness. The First World War was basically like, I think, pounced on everyone. It was like, oh shit, it's the end of the world. Let's do something. Let's make hundreds of babies. Baby boomers come in. Second World War. Okay, we're ready. We're gonna like fight back. And straight off that, everyone just went, bah. There's this like weird, there's this like dip in the
Mm.
consciousness. You can see the dip through the material of the work that they write. You can see it in their art. You can see it in the movies, in the news feeds. You can see in all of these things. If you follow through, I'm not saying I sit and watch it every day. I don't do that. But I've got a lot of books of all of those times that you can actually feel. There's this like disappointment or almost boredom. It's like people have this weird need to be excited to close to death so that they feel that they're worthy of something. And
Yeah.
because it didn't happen, um, this thing that happened in the last few years ago, this thing came close to almost rectifying it, almost in a sense, or not rectifying it, but it's not the right word, but like it's triggered people to become more emotional, charged. And so they
Yeah.
completely go the other way, the other direction. That's what I've noticed. I'm just observing it from the outside in. I don't know if
You
you've
mean in terms of being more caring or
no, apathetic and lazy,
apathetic?
but aware, even aware. Some of
Yeah.
them are aware that they are lazy and have apathy. Like just don't care type of thing.
Yeah. Um, do you think that it also had to do with this whole thing that happened the last 2 years, that they had to sit with themselves a lot
Yeah,
because of being at home,
yeah,
and they had to face a lot of their issues, and that's where a lot of divorces came in,
yes.
because now the couples, they don't have that Saturday night live going out and jawling and stuff like that. They have to be at home to face each other, and what do they have with each other now? And
Yeah.
that became a problem, and it put a lot of strain under the relationship, but mostly under themselves because they didn't know who they were.
Mm,
And like you say, the apathy was there, but it's maybe that they don't, not that they don't want to do anything about it, but they don't know how to do anything about it. Uh,
mm,
and that poses a problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because the thing is, for a lot of people, they'll go and Google and YouTube a lot of stuff and think, okay, this should help me. But it's not going to, because it's not dealing specifically with their issue. So then they just like go into another tangent and another spiral, and it takes them down a different path, and they lose themselves even more.
Yeah, I actually think that I'm the most boring person that they ever come across, because I always tell them to go into themselves, and they don't like that. But aside from that, so now that we've kind of like brainstormed a little bit and bounced a few ideas and thoughts with one another, what would you say, sort of like, I mean, we're going a little bit like towards the end now, what would you give as advice? I mean, aside from us always saying going within, how would you advise people to start? I mean, if they really wanted to help themselves, we are actually speaking to those who want to help themselves. What would you say? What would you tell them to do? I mean, what would you permit? What would you say?
For me, I would say the best thing is to sit in silence and just view what your thoughts are saying, and see how destructive they are. And if they're very destructive to you, then you know that you have to do something, and find a way to actually better those thoughts without suppressing them. You have. I find that a lot of people tend to suppress as opposed to acknowledge. And once you see those thoughts, they're like almost like in a meditation, and you see a laptop in front of you with a screen, and all these icons are there. They're popping up in your mind as you're busy meditating. Our initial thing is to click on that icon and open it up, and you go, woo, like all these different pages open up, and you get lost, and your meditation is done for. Rather be more discerning and say, right, I see all these icons, but today I'm choosing just to click on that one icon there, because that seems important to me, and I need to work on that. And when you open it up and say, that's actually quite disturbing for me, now what's my next course of action? And that's where people start looking and seeing, without getting too lost. Like, maybe go and Google and see what therapies there are out there, besides just taking a magic pill and hoping that that's going to numb those feelings, because that's not the answer. I've had clients that, because I'll never advise a client to go off their antidepressants and things like that. I'd never do that. They decide eventually to do it themselves, to cut down or just cut it off completely. And then they'll phone me a few months later and say, like, I've been off it for like 3 months, and I feel great because I was able to acknowledge where this was coming from and started dealing with it. So that's actually been like a really nice thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And how would people? I know for now, people can contact you on my website while you're busy sorting out your website.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And if anyone needed to get in contact with you, you are able to do online consultations.
Yes.
And also
So I normally do it over WhatsApp video call or Zoom. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. So everyone, if you're interested in helping yourself, that'd be amazing if you guys actually think of doing that. Paulo is the man to do the healing work with you. Thank you very much, Paulo, for coming on and having this interview with me. It's good.
Thank you very much, Rory. I appreciate it.